Okay, so after part one, I'm going to show you this the same activity I was working on before, but it completed. But let's imagine, well, what we're going to do is we're going to apply all the theory to it, pick it apart and show you how the approaches come into play and how the theory is attached to what we teach. Okay, so this would be how I would start my class. I'd see the material I've got, and I've chosen that when I'm teaching this class, I'm going to teach this one first. Okay, so this is the activity that we had. Now I've got a title for it. It's called When Does She Do What She Is Doing? Okay, it's me being a bit of a smart arse with the words, but it works. Okay, so I'm going to look at my objective. I've built on it a bit more now. I want to get students to induce the understanding of when the use of present simple when expressing routines, then demonstrate using it correctly through production of the affirmative, interrogative, negative, and the third person. Okay, so I know what I'm doing. I have a little look through this. Right, got some pictures here, got some stuff for them to practice with, got a production stage. But before I go that far, I want to start thinking about how I'm going to start my class and how the approach is going to come into play. So one of the things with the Oxford system is they have kind of like it's a behaviorist approach, this little part. Some of it's marketing, well, branding, and that's our use of quick questions. So some people regard this as, this is what we do, this is the signature of what the Oxinity and the Oxbridge teaching system is. But for me, and for you, it's a little bit deeper than that. This is direct method in a nutshell, really. And it's also behaviorism from a behaviorist approach. You're going to have a student who's sitting there thinking, oh yeah, I'm all ready for English teaching, English class today. Well, when you start asking them questions and they struggle, well, they soon sit up in their seat and they get into the learner mode, and you can start teaching them. Now bear in mind that the quick questions is just a test. It is really just like that ringing of the bell from Pavlov. It is just getting them in the mood. So don't spend too much time on this. Now these are all written out like this. I don't like using them in this format. What I do is I look at the actual form of the question, what tenses are they using, and I use that to practice their syntactic conversion. So do you care? Yes, I do. No, I don't care. I mean, it could be, do you like football? It could be anything. I would always keep a common theme going through mine. And in particular, I would use this as a lead-in, thinking from a PPP model. I would use this as my lead-in linked in with my introduction. Okay, so I would probably have some of this around what I'm going to talk about next. Now let's look at what my first activity would be. So my introduction for this is, what are we doing? What do you do on Friday nights? Oh, that should be, does your boss speak to you every day? Do you have a weekly routine? Okay, now in here, this is the test part and also a part of the lead-in from the PPP model. Okay, and here I'm finding out, unless they're getting a little glimpse of what we're going to do, what we're going to talk about, kind of engaging them from the ESA perspective, but also we're testing them. We're going to see, okay, how much depth do I have to go into my teach part? Can I go straight to practice, or do I need to make sure they have an understanding? Okay, and you see my wrap up, which would be the final teach, and I've just added some notes here around the present simple and ways we can teach it. Something that might be worth looking at if you feel uncomfortable about this before going to the activity. This is P2, so it is difficult when you're literally teaching someone. You're not warming up something they already know. There might be a little bit. I mean, they've done S1 and P2T at this point, so you can construct on what they know already, and they should be quite adept at using the present simple. But this is kind of taking it to the next level, so we can build up a little bit. Alright, so let's now start to look at what's in my present part. Now, looking at first language acquisition to second language acquisition, direct method, all of these things, looking at imagery. Okay, if I was to put this in maybe in context as well, I could, but I've put this into very image based context. Okay, So here with part 1, part 2, and I have what looks like a routine and images to go with it. Okay, so if I look at the teacher's part here, direct student to image 1 and ask, what is he doing? So we're looking for the student to say he is walking or he is walking to work. It's that current action. What is he doing? He is walking. He is walking to work. Okay, that's what we're trying to elicit. Right, and then number 2, what is he doing? He is surfing. Okay, he is surfing. He is surfing will be my natural one there. Okay, and then we can ask the students if they know what tense they are using. Okay, ask if they know what tense they are using. Okay, and we're looking for the present continuous, and we can always direct them to the fact it's the ing ending and help them with that. Okay. Now the second part here, we're going to start looking at routine. So I might say to the student, okay, what does he do Monday to Friday? Let's see. He walking to work Monday to Friday? No. Okay. He walks to work Monday to Friday. Now they might get this straight away, in which case you don't have to introduce that to them, but that's what we're looking for. Okay. And you can say to them, right, we're not using the gerund if they're grammatically intelligent like that. If they have that way of looking at it, we can talk about that. But I would probably just say he walks to work. Okay, on Monday he is walking to work, or he walks to work on Mondays if he does it every Monday. But we don't see enough repetition of Monday to know if that's a routine. So the moment he is walking to work on a Monday, we don't know if it's regular. We know that from Monday to Friday he walks to work. It's repeated for 5 days. It's a routine, it's a habit. Okay. And you can introduce this piece of target language to them now as well. Okay. The routine and habit are there. Okay. And on Saturday and Sunday, you could ask simple questions like ask student what he does at the weekend. What does he do at the weekend? Well, he surfs. He goes surfing. You've noticed I've underlined so we can see the tenses being used in the words, and that's what we're targeting. Now he surfs or he goes surfing instead of he goes instead of going. Okay. Sometimes people like to say it in that way, what they're used to. It's more common. Okay. Ask student which tense are we using here? We're using the present simple. Okay. Then ask which tense we use for routines and regular habits, and see if they've managed to deduct that from going through this. Okay. He is walking. Monday to Friday he walks. The weekend he goes surfing. Okay, see if we can start to get into induct that. Alright, then that is our presenting stage, and we've done it with a direct idea using lots of imagery, and we've tried to get them to induce it, and all of this has been in the target language. Okay, let's do the practice here. So yet again here I want to introduce the verbs. Okay, so we've got number 1, karate, number 2, yoga, 3, going to the cinema, 4, having drinks, drinking, going for drinks. There's many versions of that one. 5, watching football on TV, eating dinner with family. And you'll see in the teacher's bit here, image 1, and I've numbered them so it's very easy to use. Okay, and the questions are there. What is she doing? And then elicit that present continuous. Okay, she's doing karate. She's doing yoga. She's going to the cinema. She's watching a movie. Going for drinks, having drinks, drinking, watching football, eating. Okay, we're trying to get them to talk about that current action. Okay, then we can look at the routines. So we've got the routines column. What does she do on Mondays? Now I've created here a month, the calendar. So you can see repetitive routine here. Okay, nice little images. And the images are small, but I've introduced them first quite large. They should be able to make these out. Okay, it's all imagery. It's all very practical. It's looking at a weekly planner to understand our routines. It's got a good function. Now here I'm just getting that, making sure they understand the present simple and the present continuous use. testing it a little bit, getting to practice it as much as you can. Then also we've got, let's look at the negative. Does she swim on Mondays? No, she doesn't swim on Mondays. Yeah, does swim. Should highlight that too, but never mind. And then the affirmative of what she does do. And try and get the students to then ask you too. Okay, so it's not just all coming from you. They'll have heard you asking the questions, so hopefully they can mimic and repeat. Okay, good. In the production stage, again, to keep this, I'm just going to give them this as a little what they do Monday, Tuesday. It's all about what you ask them. Encourage students to use the TL and tell you about their weekly habits and routines. Okay, what are you doing tomorrow night? Do you do that every week? And encourage them to ask you. Okay, so you're seeing the PPP, which really drives from the cognitive approach. That's why we apply that method, step by step. Presenting something, get them to practice it, engage with it, and then get them to produce it on their own life. And hopefully that should then put that into that kind of usable long-term memory. Okay, and we've stuck with the direct method coming from the first language acquisition. We're using lots of imagery. Okay, yet again with the direct method, lots of questions, all in target language. Okay, all of this, the way we've put this together and the way you're teaching it is going to be communicative. Okay, behaviorist, well, if they get used to seeing imagery, it's going to be good for them. It's something they're familiar with. The way you teach, the way you present your class is coming from the behaviorist approach. Being on time for your class, being smart, speaking in a clear manner are all things that they expect from a teacher. So that puts them into the learner mode. And as I said, with the quick questions at the start, if we look at these again, you're using your quick questions. These are your ringing of the bell, starting your class. Your introduction, your wrap up, ensuring they understand everything. When they get used to this routine, for them it's going to become part of their stimulus, their behavior, okay? Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier about was the interrogative, getting them to ask questions. One thing that I'm sure many teachers do is they attack the quick questions with, I'm going to ask the student. Well, when you start to develop with your students, explain to them that they are yes/no questions, and then try and get them to understand those closed questions and ask you too along the same theme. We're going to be communicative. We're trying to develop a relationship, a rapport with a student, so questions have to go both ways. And especially with second language acquisition, you're going to ask more questions than you're going to have answers to when you're speaking in a foreign language. Okay. Right. And you'll see down here I have the target language as well. Do, doing, does. So I can get the third person that was mentioned in the objective and the difference between the simple and using the gerund for the continuous. And I've got another example of it here. I'm going to the cinema, I go to the cinema. And routine, weekly, and habit, which I thought was vocabulary we would probably use quite a lot when explaining the function of this. We're looking at how to express what we do habitually, regularly, routinely, our customs, our habits. And the temporary actions are much more with the gerund and the present continuous. Okay. Now, creating these, we've got a definition, we've got an example, we have a sound version which is created. All of this is very helpful for students to even again with that first language acquisition. They've got an example, they can see it in context, they can listen to it, and hopefully listening to it first. Probably not, probably reading it, but getting some image stimulus, some audio stimulus, and then actual context and definition. For example, a word like routine, if I gave that to a Spanish person, okay, rutina, I think is Spanish for routine, but routine, well, we want routine. They would say it different. Habit, habit. So they can learn how to pronunciate properly with this. Okay, I hope this helps, guys. You've got me for your classes, and obviously you've got your ELT instructors to ask more. But hopefully this gives you some ideas on how we teach these, applying the theories and the methods and the procedures that we go through. Okay, all right, that's me.